everybody, thanks for watching today. Waiver wire is actually going to be pretty good for week 5. As always, let's start you out with some names that are maybe only available in some shallower leagues, but at least worth taking a look in your league and seeing if they're available. And different fantasy teams need different things after the first month. If you're a Leonard Fournette owner, or if you have a short-term running back need, I think TJ Yeldon does make the most sense as the #1 ad overall this week because he has a big job waiting for him in that Jacksonville backfield if there's no Leonard Fournette. If you're thinking a little more long-term, maybe Buck Allen would be the smarter ad. At receiver, I'd love to put Geronimo Allison here higher, but unfortunately he suffered a concussion in week 4 and came out. And by the time he's back, it's possible Randall Cobb's hamstring is fixed, so maybe there isn't quite as much work for him. Vance McDonald would be the tight end I'd add to use in week 5, but we'll get to a different name in a moment who might just be a better bet for the next month overall. And Antonio Callaway really should catch the ball, but the targets keep coming. Hey, a quick break to say thank you to BetDSI for sponsoring. If you've been looking for a place to play the NFL games, we talk a little bit of handicapping on this show and on the podcast, and perhaps you were thinking it would be nice to have a place to play the games. I play at BetDSI.com. I can get you free deposit matching up to $500 when you go to BetDSI.com and use the promo code HarrisTube. It's a safe and secure and well-supported site that's been around for about as long as there's been gaming on the internet, and I think you can really have a great time with BetDSI. So we thank them very much for sponsoring, and let's get back to more waivers. Okay, and let's get back into it with 5 waiver pickups likelier to be available in more leagues. I'm going to show you film on 4 of them. The one probably don't need to show you is the tight end I mentioned earlier. The Buccaneers are off in week 5 as they transfer from Ryan Fitzpumpkin to Jameis Winston, but O.J. Howard, fresh off me singing his praises on the show last Thursday, sprained his knee on Sunday and could miss up to a month, and that gives Cameron Brate a terrific chance to be an obvious fantasy starter through much of October if you can wait that long. Now again, kind of different guys for different needs. If you can afford to wait a week, if you can sit through the Tampa Bay bye week, I think Ronald Jones is my #1 ad. It's not like he or anybody else for the Buccaneers did anything on Sunday, but I think he gives you the biggest ceiling for the longest term, potentially, if he happens to hit that ceiling. Let's take a look. Can I tell you how bad it went for Tampa this week? This is how bad it went for Tampa this week. I mean, maybe block the defensive tackle there, right? I don't think you're blaming Ronald Jones for stinking on Sunday because, as I mentioned, all of the Buccaneers stunk on Sunday. But there's quickness, there's acceleration. On this play, even a little bit of toughness. I think what Jones probably has most going for him, however, is he's not Peyton Barber. And I mean, Jones was a healthy scratch for 3 weeks for a reason as a rookie. It's clear there are some knuckle-headed tendencies that are very much captured by this drop in the red zone. I don't have great Week 4 highlights to show you. There aren't any. But lest we forget about Ronald Jones as a prospect, here are some college highlights. Certainly, we have questions about his ability to learn the playbook, but the raw material really is there. In college, as a prospect, the dude Jones reminded me of most was Jamal Charles, and I think it's clear from now how ill-prepared he was to contribute in the NFL right away. Rojo wasn't ready immediately to be Jamal Charles, but he's sudden. You can see it. He's a sprinter. You can see it. He accelerates. And he's not Peyton Barber. Did I mention he's not Peyton Barber? So coming out of the bye, I expect the Bucs to at least give Robert Jones a chance. Now, to me, Jones and Brate are probably the most obvious waiver ads, but you might not be able to wait. They're off in week 5. So maybe, as I said on that full screen graphic, the best potential waiver ad is Naheem Hines of the Colts. Indianapolis, where the running game pretty much is the short passing game, because there kind of is no running game. Hines scored twice Sunday against the Texans. This was the first. It's a pretty high degree of difficulty catch, right? A little shove to the Honey Badger's back there. skies to make the play, gets both his feet down. Hines is 5'9" and 198. And as a runner, I mean, he's probably a situational runner mostly. Austin Eckler, that sort of player. But this kind of play, pretty good. Let's not get things twisted. Hines did much of his work Sunday on checkdowns like this one. He came out of North Carolina State with a reputation for quickness. This is a big 3rd and 10 in overtime. He makes one man miss, and that's really all he had to do on that play, and he did it. But I'm not going to call it the most special play I saw all weekend. And this was the game-tying touchdown. Essentially for now, this is the Colts running game, which means for those in deeper leagues who want a dart throw PPR running back this week, Hines against the Patriots Thursday night gives you a chance at 50 or 60 total yards with 5 or 6 catches. Next guy, now in that same Texans-Colts game, we'll talk this other rookie here, receiver Keke Coutee, who was a super deep sleeper of mine this summer on the podcast. And now this play is pretty typical of how Coutee was deployed Sunday. The Colts going to play a ton of cover 2 safeties back, and you're going to get room in the middle of the field. It becomes a fairly easy pitch and catch to that vacant middle. Again, all zone, and number 16 there, that's Coutee. All he needs to do is turn around and stand there. And I honestly can't tell you Coutee was some amazing performer, some incredible revelation. This was largely about a shootout of a game with very little running, and the Colts playing a lot of zone, B. So I say potential for Coutee. Watch out for Julian Edelman in his return Thursday night, by the way. This was Coutee's best catch in a crucial spot in overtime, 3rd and 9. Very good catch. Great, not good, but great throw by Deshaun Watson. I mean, high usage. Coutee winds up with 11 catches on 15 targets, mostly checkdowns, but this is a pretty good one, and he winds up with 105 yards. Now, of course, Will Fuller, who had scored a touchdown earlier in that game, winds up leaving with a bad hamstring, and that explains some of the usage for sure. But, I mean, how many years have the Texans been looking for a number 3 and sometimes number 2 wide receiver? It feels like they've at least got a fairly nice security blanket, and it's just his first NFL game. So I'm having a hard time selling you Keke Coutee as a top 30 receiver in week 5. Not right away. But maybe Will Fuller misses the game, and maybe we get another really good effort, and in the end, I think a speculative ad in a somewhat deeper league, there's a lot of wide receivers you could use, right? But I think Coutee at least is going to wind up joining that conversation, especially in PPR. And then speaking of speculative ads, Nick Chubb. I mean, he only had 3 carries for the Browns against the Raiders on Sunday, and I guess I'll show you 2 of them. This first long touchdown, at first it's about good blocking and Chubb getting out in space, but look at the long speed. I spent last year and this summer wondering whether Chubb's long speed was wrecked by his awful knee injury as a freshman in college. Watch Garrett Conley there. Last line of defense, 4.44 speed, Garrett Conley. First round draft pick, Garrett Conley. Bad angle, and whoosh, Nick Chubb is gone. And here's Chubb's second touchdown. The Raiders get good penetration on this play, and Chubb sort of stays alive, right? He kind of dawdles, and hey, I'm not tackled yet, so I'll get going. But the move to note is when he gets up to a safety there. I think that's Eric Harris. And that's not a lightning cut. Chubb does have to slow down and gather himself to make the sort of the dead leg, right? The sudden jab step. But it's good. It may not be great, but it's good. And then he turns it on, and there's the speed once again. So in the short term, I think we all know what the problem is. It's playing time. He had 3 carries. He was playing special teams in that game. Carlos Hyde's actually been good himself. They're very dissimilar players, but Hyde has been both productive and consistent and basically been a very valuable fantasy commodity himself. So we have to think of Chubb as more of a second half of the season guy, more of a handcuff guy. Now that the Browns offense with Baker Mayfield at quarterback is a little bit more wide open and a little bit potential to score 30 or 40 points in a game, I'd say maybe handcuffing Hyde with Chubb isn't a terrible idea. And then Hyde's workload has been fairly insane. And maybe there's an injury coming too, in which case Chubb would potentially inherit what could turn out to be not such a bad running back job after all. thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.